new?
That's a new one. I'm trying to change it up.
Wow, just changing it up.
But hello, welcome. This is episode 21 of the NgoVo Convo podcast, where two stupids make it hype.
Oh, I haven't heard that in a while.
It's because we're busy.
I know.
It's been busy. But I am one of your hosts, Harrison O, and I'm joined by Veronica Vo.
Yep.
I don't know.
Window.
Yes.
To the window. To the wall. Okay, I'm not going to finish
When I move,
that.
that's going to change.
I
have
know.
no idea.
I know.
Yeah. But anyway, if you're new here, we both just want an excuse to talk about anything that ranges from anime to comics. Some would say conversing.
Because like NgoVo Convo. Our two last names combined.
In the title of our podcast. That's insane.
In all the logos.
Man. But if you don't get that,
Now you do.
you should check yourself. Now you do. But you can watch every episode on youtube.com or listen to it as a podcast by searching NgoVo Convo on your podcast service of choice.
Yes.
In this episode, we're going to change it up because we
Again.
always talk about a show, ideally, but this time, we're trying things out. We're trying formats just to see because we can, because it's our show, Veronica.
Yes.
And this time we are going to talk about a topic instead.
Oh, surprise.
So you don't have to technically watch a show and or series and catch up and watch. You could just watch us right now.
Yeah.
So don't do that. Because we're going to talk about gatekeeping in general. Like I just felt like I just wanted to like get you to rant, if anything.
Do you want me to rant? I'm very chaotic.
Yeah, go. Let's go.
Oh, okay.
Let loose. Usually we have like a structure, but this time we're like, hey,
Let's not structure.
It's also not because we don't have a lot of shows to talk about. What are you talking about? We have What If being recorded.
Yes. Drops every Friday at 7 a.m.
Because the last one would have been episode 2. And yes, we've both watched it. And it was pretty cool.
Yeah?
I haven't watched it yet.
No, but
I'm
when
just
this
gonna be
drops,
upfront.
we've watched it.
But when this drops, we will have
so,
watched
yeah,
it. So it's really good. Or, ooh, I didn't like that thing about that. But I did like that other thing.
I also didn't like that part. It's fine. No end credit. We're good.
It's okay. Bro, if there's an end credit.
I know.
But gatekeeping.
Gatekeeping.
Now that I feel like it's funny because when we started being friends a long time ago, years ago, my God, we were more like, we talked more about comics, right? So it was, but
a
now
lot more like CW shows.
Yeah, it was more CW at the time because that was like the big thing, right?
Yeah. Daredevil was a good one.
Yes. But now that you're starting to watch more anime, I want to just touch on this topic just because I'm just interested in what you think and what you've experienced recently, if anything. Or if you've experienced gatekeeping or if you've just seen it. You're on Twitter and stuff more than me. You're just on the socials more than me.
I think we both absorb social media really bad.
I absorb it, but I tend to stick with like one platform for a bit. Like TikTok right now is like the go-to. I tried to get into Twitter, but I just didn't feel like sticking with it for a while.
But each one gives me something different.
True.
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah.
But just to start off, gatekeeping, according to Google, is a noun.
Oh.
And the first definition is the activity of controlling and usually limiting general access to something.
They really tickled my ear. I don't know if I
That was the whole point.
I don't think I
Definition
want
2
that again.
is in terms of computing, a function or system that controls access or operations to files, computers, networks, or the like.
Wow, ASMR by Harrison.
But yeah, so gatekeeping. Essentially, yeah. What I like to say is gatekeeping is usually freaking annoying, but
I think it's annoying.
Have you ever experienced this or I feel like ever experienced it or indirectly did it to someone you feel like?
I feel like I don't think I gatekeep in general.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I do. tell me if I'm wrong. I don't really think I do.
I don't think you have. I don't think
I'm
you
trying
have.
to think of it, but I'm like, I'm pretty open about shows and characters, so I don't. It's not like I'm gonna like gatekeep like a certain character or anything, which people do, which is annoying.
Yes.
But I have seen a lot of gatekeeping, especially on TikTok. It's like the worst platform to that people gatekeep on is probably TikTok.
Yeah, I agree 100%. But I guess you never have you one thing I've probably indirectly have done was and this is like for both anime and comics. Oh, excuse me. But essentially it's more like, so I know for animes, I say anime is easier for me to pick on, but I feel like I've done it with comics at some point. But like anime, it's always like the easiest one is like, and you've probably seen this on TikTok. And it's like they talk about anime, they talk about top 10 lists, like all that stuff. And one thing is like, oh, this guy says Dragon Ball Z is like the best, and usually it's like, so that probably means you only watch that.
Yeah.
And you're not like a true weeb.
Or people say like whenever people do like top list of whatever, they're just like, oh, you stick to this certain genre or like this type of persona. And then they're like, oh, but that's not like the elite taste.
I found this one, yes. And it's funny because I feel that I get this from like a few of my friends. I got this from like people in college. Just hearing it, right? I never got it directly. If anything, at the time, like when I knew people, I meant like when I, man, that was weird. When I knew people in college, this is weird. Words are hard.
Words are hard.
On the podcast. Veronica, this is my resignation.
Oh!
But you've heard it here first, folks. Like I think the easiest one, I found this picture, and it actually is perfect. And if anything, here, let me just copy this and send it to our Discord so you can at least see it too. So you have a better idea. But I'll kind of read off what it says.
So I've seen this
that?
one, yeah.
You've seen that, yeah. I feel like that's the easiest one. Like,
it's
the easiest thing. So in terms of like the anime community, it's like there's a pyramid, but then below that there's like a bar, and it says the Untouchables. So we'll start from the bottom and go up. So Untouchables, Fairy Tail, and Sword Art. And it's hilarious because your first anime was technically what?
Sword Art Online.
I will die on this hill. I think arc 1 is fine. I had fun with it. Okay, I was a wild player. I think that's why I like vibed with it. After that, I cannot. Nope. After that, I can't protect it. I'm like, nope. It's bad.
That made me stop watching anime. I could have watched anime.
It was
years
the worst
ago.
thing for you to start. It was you really could have. But I remember when we first talked to each other in college. I'm like, hey, have you ever watched anime? You're like, no.
I know. I was like, nah.
It's like, it's not for me. And then later on, I found out why. I was like, oh, you started with Sword Art? I say it was the worst to start. And then Fairy Tail is just that. Your boyfriend,
I've never watched it.
Yeah, but your boyfriend is deep.
But my boyfriend has watched it. Yes.
Yes, and I used to love Fairy Tail. I guess it's untouchable now because it's all just fan service and it's the power of friendship.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then the next tier above that is entry level weeb, which lists Dragon Ball, Naruto, and Bleach.
The three longest running, like, animes. Well, not yeah.
It's funny. Okay, so I want to touch on this next. There's Weeaboo on top of that, is what they label it, and it's Death Note, Attack on Titan, Tokyo Ghoul, One Punch Man, One Piece, and Detective Conan. I actually would have thought One Piece would have been like an entry because I thought for me it was just the big three is usually just like everyone. That's the easiest thing to recommend.
Yeah.
So for me that's just been like that, but I'm sure that's probably changed by now because there's so much more anime.
I think so. Yeah.
But out of all that, we'll just kind of go. So that's Weeaboo, so that's a tier above entry. And then above that is Otaku, quote unquote, and it's Full Metal, Alchemist, Kogia, Steins Gate, and Hunter x Hunter. Or Hunter x Hunter, I'm sorry. I'm just reading.
It's okay.
And then the elite anime fan on top is Berserk, Evangelion. I almost like butchered that too. Cowboy Bebop, Legends of the Galactic Heroes. Have you heard any of those?
I have. Cowboy
I'm just
Bebop is on my list.
Yes.
Um,
Evangelion should be too.
Yeah, that one I couldn't pronounce it, so I was like,
It's on Netflix now. It's
yeah,
only
it is.
recently. Like I think in the
Yeah.
past year or two. I think.
And then the Legends of Galactic Heroes is also on my list. It's on Crunchyroll.
Yes.
Berserk, I've heard that I should read it and not watch it.
You should read it.
But the creator just died and it's unfinished.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But it's been going on for so long.
Like the 70s.
Like, it's yes.
Like the 70s.
Like
yeah.
it's one of those that I'm like, even though that happened, I'd recommend it. Just because it has such a huge impact on everything. I've only like one of my friends, like he's a hardcore Berserk fan, and back then I like started reading it, but then I just stopped because of school. I just stopped a lot. This is a point when I just stopped reading
you
and
like
or watching
stopped
everything.
reading, watching stuff.
Yeah, just because I was like, I don't have time. Now I have so much time.
I know.
So I'd recommend that for sure. So, but you can see like the elite ones is like essentially like
All like the old.
it's honestly the older, but it's
Stuff.
also I think it's good to know. It's like one of those like it's not required reading. I wouldn't say required, but it's good to know like this is where things could be like a lot of anime is art.
We're influenced by this.
We're influenced by those four. So.
How do you feel about this?
I would say I'm guilty of saying like, oh, you've only seen the big three. You need to watch these other ones too, though. I've said that. I have said that. Because back then, big three was always just like, oh, these are just the longest ones. There's so much filler. Like there's so much other stuff that you can just watch that have just as much action, but like still more compact. Like I was like, hey, you should watch or I now recommend like Code Geass and stuff like that, just because your boyfriend's actually the one that told me. I will say this because it's always hilarious how like he's the reason why I got back into this stuff.
That's so funny. You guys actually got me back into anime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was cool. Well, I mean, it was like we didn't have much to do, so
Yeah, I know.
pandemic.
Oops.
Or pandemic hit. Like you started like end of 2019, but pandemic hit hard,
And then the
so you actually like got deep. But I feel like if as you go higher, like people are like, oh, if you don't watch these, you're obviously not like
the elite,
an actual anime fan. So
I hate that word, elite.
Yeah,
It's not. I'm not a fan of that word, especially when it comes to like watching shows.
Yeah,
It's
because
like
it's hard.
It's like the
I say
picky
now
people.
because back then it was easier, and I say back then this applies to comics too. Back then it was easier because most time nerds and geeks were kind of like quote unquote
Not cool.
not cool, and
Not
now
cool.
and now
And now
it
they're
is.
cool.
Yeah,
But also back then, I think for both comics and anime, there weren't a lot of platforms out that could hold these shows and that were like readily available for people.
access was very limited.
Yeah, especially for anime. You had to go on like
I mean, back then people would like
Crunchyroll
buy-
was not like a safe website at first.
no, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't, and it just got legit over time because it like got momentum
big,
and
it got
actually
momentum,
got
yeah.
big. But it went legit, and that's when people were like kind of skeptical. Oh yeah, it was
Yeah.
cool.
My
But also,
boyfriend
it was
told
like,
me.
but it was on the level of like Kiss Anime,
Yeah.
right?
My boyfriend told
So-
me he watched Naruto and Bleach on YouTube in parts.
Yep.
For years.
Yep. And if you miss part like you could watch a cool episode on I watched Bleach on YouTube for sure and Naruto. Yeah, actually no, I did the same thing. But I remember like at times when you miss it's like Bleach episode like 24 part 2. There's not a 3. You're screwed. You got to watch part 4. You just got to get context clues at that point or you scour the web. Like my fiance, she went on a different site. I forgot what site it was. But it was a very sketchy site. It's not Vimeo. I forgot what it's called. It's not Vimeo, but it was like some other. But it was some other.
It was really sketchy though.
It was one of those like if you got desperate. It wasn't even. Yeah, it was just sketch, and it was like if you got desperate and you really wanted to know, then yeah, you go there, sure. But I remember searching on Google like episode blah 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 blah.
Part 2 of this episode.
And yeah, it was.
I think
So
people
when
have it
like
good now.
so when people have it so good now
Oh,
because like when Kiss Anime or like Crunchyroll came out, you're like, this is the full episode. There is no parts needed.
What?
This feels illegal. This feels illegal. But it was subbed, and it was subbed like it was subpar, but it was still subbed. Oh, God bless those people back then subbing that stuff.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
so good. But
And then
anyway.
uploading.
Getting back to gatekeeping. I feel like if anything, your experience was more like you asked for recommendations, right? So I think everyone was like more willing to like just
And
reach
everyone
out and say,
was
hey,
just,
you should
like,
watch this. Like
tell
just
me.
give you a list of things.
Yeah.
I think now it's just easy. It's also just easier now to like, hey, you could just search it up and it's on
There's
something. At this
also
point.
My Anime List, the website where you can just search whatever you want, and it's probably going to be there, anime or manga.
Yeah. So, yeah, but it is kind of upsetting when like, if anything, I think we see it more now because there's more access.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it goes for comics too. Like, I think
we're gonna flip to comics.
I know. I think we're gonna segue.
Flip to comics really quick.
Really
because
quick.
there's so much more access, or I think if anything, more people are aware. Like Marvel,
Yeah.
I think
I was just gonna say Marvel, like Disney Plus.
Marvel was the big one. Where back then when it first came out, people were like, "Oh, what's this?" Blah blah blah. And I remember like I was one of the people that I knew what was going on. I at least knew something, right?
Because we read their comics.
Yeah,
That's why.
Yeah, we either read comics or at the worst case scenario, I read stuff on Wikipedia.
Yes.
My brother was deep into that. He was the one that was like, he would
Like,
sit on wikis and just straight up
into
like read histories on certain things.
everything. Oh, man.
He was the one that explained to me back then. Like we were, I think middle school or some shit. He was like, "Hey, do you understand how the multiverse works in Marvel?" I was like, "No." He's like, "They're numbered." I was like, "What?"
Oh.
And back then I was just like, "This is," and it was confusing back then as a kid. But
Yeah.
it was still cool to get into because you're like, "Oh, this is better than watching reality television."
Exactly. I would definitely say, I think I saw a lot of gatekeeping for Marvel when WandaVision came out. Just because I think people expected the ones that weren't into Marvel to at least watch some, like, certain movies that hit up to the point of, like, WandaVision.
We're at that point of that's happening now, right?
Yeah.
I think, and it's funny because it's not comics as a whole. This is just MCU specifically. Like back, like early on, MCU was like, "Oh, you don't know this stuff about Marvel." Well, here,
pre Loki messing it up, basically.
Yes, yeah. Like people, like the nerds were out there, like, "Oh, this is what this means." Blah blah. See, I thought that was fun, but now it's like, and I don't think it's bad. I think it's like harder. Marvel is just at that point where it's hard to do that. I think I was talking about this. I think earlier on some other episode we were talking about how like I think MCU universe is almost gatekeeping itself.
It really is.
But it's just gotten to that point.
It's just so linear up to Loki that you had to know what was happening to Wanda before WandaVision became a show, and watching it.
Yeah.
And like I understood those people who were like saying that you needed to watch Endgame, Infinity War, was it Civil War to get Wanda, like her like entire like story. Yeah. And then WandaVision does like the background of it and what's gonna happen next.
Yeah.
So but I get it.
It's hard. I think it's harder now because it's like now it's like, oh, you don't know this stuff because you didn't do your required reading, required watching.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you don't know about this? You should watch this. Why didn't you watch? Like, it gets to that point where.
Or they say like, oh, but it's in this comic issue number. Blah, blah.
See, that was already happening when when MCU started. So that was the first instance of gatekeeping for me too. Because even there's some things where I'm like, oh. I recognize the big moments, but there's little things that's, oh, you can pinpoint this part.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
I know. There's some people who are like, oh, we can figure out what's going to happen next because they did this scene here, and then they skipped to, like, other things for certain people. But I'm just sitting here saying, but why would Marvel and Disney follow what two people are going to say? One person that's going to say it, and then like 500 people agree just because they heard it first there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. This is like the third part I had ready, and it was funny because remind me to talk about this, but this is like another point because this is just more open. Mike,
Wow.
cough, cough.
Oh.
Essentially, you know how like it's like actual nerds that read from the comics compared to the movies. That's the same for manga v anime. So put a pin on that. Put a pin on that. If we don't get to that, that's a whole nother thing.
That can be a whole other episode.
That's like a part 2 to this.
Yeah.
Because we're at 20. Yeah. Where was I saying though? Yeah. So I think it's just harder now. Like I know like, and sometimes I indirectly don't mean to do that either with the whole MCU specifically, where people are like, oh, is this important to watch? And now it's harder to be like, yes, it would be helpful. Like WandaVision or even like Falcon Winter Soldier.
Falcon.
You kind of have to know what happened up to Endgame, but then watching Endgame, for people that want to watch Endgame because they've heard so much about it, they're like, I remember back at work, everyone's like, do I need to watch this? I'm like for instance, like Ant-Man, is that important? Well, now that you've watched Endgame and like Infinity Wars, you're like, kind of important to know who these people are.
Yeah.
Or like
but I feel like you're not really gatekeeping. You're like,
I think it's
asking,
more recommend. Yeah.
And then you're recommending what they should do.
Yeah.
Like you're not saying, oh yeah, like yes, you should watch these shows or read this comic issue. You know.
Otherwise, it's hard. Like there's that intensity of gatekeeping that it's like for me it's more indirect. That I'm like, I'm so passionate about like watching all this. Like you and me, we will watch. Then we just go before pre-COVID. We would go like that weekend, or I remember I had groups back then that would go midnight premieres.
Midnight premieres.
Oh man, those are so
Screw
fun,
school. I
skipped class the next day.
It was Friday. It's fine.
It was Friday. Oh, actually, a lot of my classes were in the afternoon. So by then, when we were watching, we'd stay up till like because when we go watch, it's done by like 1 or 2, but we'd stand outside, hyping up and talking about everything that just happened. I remember like, for instance, like Falcon and Winter Soldier, or like Justice or Batman v Superman. We had a group for that.
Oh yeah.
And we stood outside talking about Batman v Superman because. We're like, oh, this happened. Oh, this was a reference to this. Oh, they showed the Flash going back in time. Like back then, this was like peak because we're like,
it was peak comic.
We're like, whoa, this is so like it was peak because we're like, oh, we finally get to see Batman and Superman on the screen going against each other. It was like that animated movie back then.
It was the hype
episode. It was so hype.
Yeah.
In retrospect, it was okay. But back then it was like, this was so cool. We got to see like all these, it alluded to so many things. But every time I talked about that for other people though, they're like,
what?
I don't think it's like gatekeeping, but you can tell like,
you can tell they're not like a fan.
They're not
of certain
deep.
stuff.
They're just not as deep.
Just not deep. They're surface level. They know Batman. They know Superman.
Entry level.
Entry level nerd. Comic.
I don't know.
But yeah. And I mean, to the people who do gatekeep, and then for the people who respond to gatekeeping, there's a thing called Google.
Yeah.
There's really a thing called Google. You search it if you want to know about it.
I think gatekeep, when it happens though, it's more like, I feel like it just happens when you put up like a list of what you like. Or what you recommend. Yeah. Like sometimes someone's like, oh, like for instance, like I had a point where I was like, oh yeah, I recommended Veronica these shows, and then someone I knew was like, oh, why would you watch? Like it's like, oh, why would you watch? Like that's a lot of shonen. Shonen's dumb. Like you're not like that's not good anime. I was like, how is it not? And
look at us now.
Look at us now. We just did a top 5 shonen episode. We're gonna link that right there.
Yeah, we will.
corner.
Up, down, everywhere.
But yeah, like I get that instance a lot more whenever it's like, oh, it's more when you recommend I feel like it's when you recommend, because that's when your opinion comes out.
Oh
and
yeah. It's
you're always
also when
wrong.
you're listing like top whatever. I've seen a lot on Twitter where people do their top 10 anime like act like just top 10
And they're wrong.
with no genre. And then
they're wrong.
yeah, well, I guess. And then in the comments everyone's like, "Oh, but romance shouldn't be in there." Or they're like, "Oh, that's too much shonen." Or people will say, "Oh, Dragon Ball Z shouldn't be there." I'm just like, but it's their top 10. It's not your top 10.
Yeah, exactly.
know?
That's why every time, like, when we do an episode like that, I'm like, my top 10s or like my top things is just because I vibe with it, right? I've just learned I'm like a hype beast, and I just like
Me too.
I'm monkey brain. I like fights, and I like when it's not saying that I don't like anything that's complex. Like, when it is, I appreciate it a lot more. But
Steins
my
Gate.
guilty
Oh.
pleasure, hey, whoa, Steins Gate, the build up was purposeful.
Yes, it's good.
I was
It's
as
good.
stated in that episode, I was one of those people that stopped before the
The
drop.
hype. Oh, man.
Yeah, the roller coaster was still going up,
Oh, yeah.
but
But I also hate the people that call themselves elite. I really don't like it when someone's like, "Oh, but my taste is elite," and then they
or
start.
not even that. It's just that, oh, my taste is better, and you're like, oh, what the?
I know. I'm like, huh? What do you mean?
Yeah, because like, I've
Because
seen
those
it a
people
lot.
are just picky. They're
Like, I'm telling you,
just
like,
so
I see it
picky.
more with I just see it more with anime, maybe just because right now there's more access. Because it's harder to come by with comic stuff. Because right now the big thing, it's just easy to be like. Another thing is easy to be like, oh, you watch the DC movies and you like them somewhat. Oh, you
Yeah.
have to you probably have shit taste. Like, that's why I watch that's why it's like
That's why I like Marvel.
I
a
like
little
Marvel,
bit more.
but I like I'm just a DC fanboy, and I want DC to be good.
If
But the
DC is
moment-
just up there with Marvel, it'd be so hard to pick. I think.
Yeah, movie wise, yes. Right
Yeah,
now I can tell.
movie-wise.
Like, I always stand by this. I'm like, comics I just enjoy more in DC. I like the animated stuff more in DC.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because like I think it's just a byproduct of Marvel being a Disney product now, or Disney IP
Yeah.
now. In that all their anime shows are honestly geared towards more younger audiences.
Oh
So
yeah. 14 and under is what they're geared towards.
yeah. Meanwhile, like, DC animated goes hard, and it's so good. It's so good.
It is so good.
But see, that's indirectly, I'm like, hey, I like this better. Yeah. It always goes back to opinions, right? It feels like.
Your opinions are wrong.
Lo and behold. But okay, so that's just like more like, so going back to the whole, what are your thoughts on when you hear, now that you've probably been more exposed to it, it's like the whole sub v dub,
Oh.
or that's actually a perfect one.
Oh, that's a good one.
Sub v dub is a good one. Yeah.
You know, I have a funny story about that.
Yeah.
I think you know.
I think I know. What is it?
Yeah. So I came home from work. This is pre-COVID. I came home from work before my boyfriend, and I put on My Hero on Hulu. I didn't notice that was in dub, so I was just watching the episode. I was like, oh, this is cool.
cool.
Like, it was like the first episode of the first season, because that was my next recommended like show to watch.
Because you watched Full Metal before that, right?
I watched Full Metal, and then I watched Hunter x Hunter.
Because
and
we
then
told
My
you to watch that in English.
Yeah, yeah, and we can get into that in like a different episode
Yeah.
or in this one right now. And then
Yeah.
My Hero was the third show to watch, so I put it on. My boyfriend comes home, and I think his jaw dropped because he heard dub with My Hero. He was like, "It's in English. What are you doing?" He was like, "This is
Bro, what are you
wrong."
Bro, what are you doing?
That's what he said. He was like, "This feels wrong." So he took the remote and he was like, "No, we're watching this in sub. I'm changing out of work clothes and we will watch this properly."
What a man.
That's my funny story.
I'm in that camp though where I'm like, I think subs are still better than dub, but dubs are getting better. I will say dubs, in comparison to what it used to be, dubs are getting way better. Like, at the end of the day, I totally get it. If someone wants, like, I can't watch anime on the side because I have to watch a sub.
Yeah.
But if I could have it on the side, I wish I could play it in dub. But I just have I have this stigma from like way back, right? Like only a few anime I recommend watching in English. Like, for me, it's always just been Dragon Ball, Full Metal, Brotherhood, and Cowboy Bebop.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay. You're the first person to recommend Cowboy Bebop to me in sub.
That's just because dubbed.
Oh,
right?
dubbed. Yeah.
Just because I watched it dubbed. But
okay.
I feel like back then it was honestly not bad. Like, compared to most things back then, it was not bad. Maybe now people...
Oh, wait,
yeah. Now, yeah. Wait, what's up?
I was going to say, to add to that list, Oran High School Club should be in dub.
I forgot what I watched it in, actually. Sidebar, it's really funny when I said I've watched it. I've watched parts of it. I know I watched like the first 3 episodes or something like that because I thought it was really funny. Honestly, I thought it was really funny.
It's cute.
It's hilarious. And it just fell off my radar just because I started watching other stuff. But I've told my younger cousins that are now old enough to watch anime. It's hilarious because they're weebs. And I said, oh yeah, I've seen it. They're like, they look at me and they're like, you're a dude.
You are a dude.
There you go. I was like, another somewhat gay. I was like, I can watch it. I don't care.
It's because they know you like shonen.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, but yeah,
there's nothing wrong with dub. Honestly, nothing wrong.
There's not.
A lot of people leave it in the background, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I think as a personal preference, I like sub because I like watching animation.
I still feel like sub is like the original. It's like as if it's like you watch it as like the original, and it's like how when you say, oh, the artist originally intended it this way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like that ideology with that, and I'm like, that's how I view sub v dub. But I think now it's starting to. That's why I say now it's kind of different because back then it's like we didn't have access. That's just easier to watch.
And not a lot of English speakers wanted
not
to
a lot of
do anime.
Yeah, they wouldn't dub. But now there's so many voice actors doing this stuff. Like if anything, voice actors gain more recognition. So it's just
definitely
a thing. So so that's sub v dub.
We can go deeper into that in another episode though.
That's another one. Because then the other one is manga v anime.
Oh god. Or comics v
movie or shows now. Yeah.
Or books and movies. That because books to movies
that's a battle that's been fought for like years.
Age. But I mean that puts in the same concepts as like manga versus anime, comics versus TV shows and movies. Obviously, if we were cause let me just dive into like book versus movie. I like reading, so books are obviously going to trump a movie. But I think it just depends on how the writer and the director wrote the movie. So it really depends on the writing. It's all about the writing and the acting, and then it'll be good.
Yeah.
Or it'll be
I think
really
the
bad.
hard part with that stuff is every time I have some leeway with that one because a movie is always in my head. It's like an hour and a half to 2 hours. And you have to condense this book.
That's like maybe 300 pages.
Because then the only time when people broke that system was Harry Potter. When Harry Potter had to be
Lord of the Rings too.
Broken up into.
Oh man.
Lord of the Rings also. Yes. Oh my gosh. That's when like, wait, we could just make it into parts. Oh my god, we make more money.
Yeah.
So I think that was like their way of trying to hold true to the book sometimes, but sometimes the book, then there's like the argument of sometimes some books they just drag it. Like for instance, Lord of the Rings. Again, when they were doing the whole when they were traveling to what was it?
That one
Riverdale?
town. Yeah. No.
That
Maybe?
whole when they try to go to the elves, that whole section in the forest is long.
It was maybe.
I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings fan, so I don't remember names that well. So
I think
my
it
brother
was,
read the books and he
it was
explained
1/4 of the book.
and he showed he showed me the book and I was like,
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. He was describing a lot of stuff. Yeah, that's books versus movies.
So
I think
there's some
you
things that
go.
like that you know some things would be better than others, but if we go into like what was it, manga,
anime versus
and,
manga. I feel like I just recently dipped into manga, so I don't think I have much to say other than the fact that obviously if you have expectations of having certain panels be animated and it's not animated, you're going to be disappointed, obviously.
like easiest one is for me. That one that comes to mind right now that's easiest just to people because people meme and shit on it all the time is Seven Deadly Sins.
Oh yeah,
That's the funniest one. I
that's
think
the funniest one.
because people were so hyped about that one fight. You know what a fight? I'm not
Yeah.
gonna say.
Yeah.
I
I
was also
know.
hyped.
The audience knows.
If you watch Seven Deadly Sins and you know that fight, it's one of those where you're like, oof, dang. But that's also the animation studio plays a role. There's a lot of factors.
yeah, there's a lot
I
of
think that's the
factors.
issue, right?
But going with
So-
one that's really bad, I think one that does really well is Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Attack on Titan.
Attack on
And
Titan,
One Piece. Well,
Can't
wait,
speak for
no,
that last
scratch
one.
that. One Piece, the pacing in anime really
I was gonna
sucks.
say,
No.
I was like, are you sure?
that.
I
Let
like
me
thought
check
about it. I was like, I've heard how they do a lot of reaction panels, or in the show. In the show, they do like a
Yeah,
lot of like
they
cut,
do
cut,
that.
cut to get everyone's reaction, but that's just to like cut time and like they cut time by like having a long intro,
long intro,
like long.
They also put in scenes that, like repeated scenes again from past episodes sometimes for a while. Okay, I take that back. Not One Piece, but it's a good manga.
Flashbacks and all that. Yes,
Yeah. So
it's probably better now. I heard it's better now though.
It is. It is a little better.
Yeah,
But yeah, there are certain animes that are stay true to the manga,
yeah.
or the animes have changed a little bit and it's probably better.
Yeah.
And that's probably why the creator said yes to it, because the writers and creators probably talked about it.
I think now it's a lot better. It's funny because I'm like, now I don't think it's that bad because now I think it's better than what it used to be. Back then it was always, people tried to be the longest running show.
Oh yeah.
AKA Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece. One Piece
Yeah.
is king. Congrats. You did it. You outlasted. You're on the same series.
Oh yeah, I know.
Because Naruto's on a new one. Bleach is now coming back, but it's still going to end shorter.
Oh yeah.
It's,
And Boruto, his dad needs a show, I think.
I hate you so much. Let that die. You won't let that die.
I will.
Because you're not wrong.
Yeah, his dad needs a show or two.
I'm sure it's better.
Yeah. It needs a better.
See, and that's the other thing is, if you watch it now it's micro level. It's like, if you like Boruto, God, you have shit taste
You
because
have
obviously
shit taste, yeah.
obviously you didn't like Naruto. And I'm like, sure. I just don't have motivation to watch Boruto after all.
I just don't want to ruin Naruto as a character. I really enjoyed him at the end of his series, and
Yeah.
I just didn't want to ruin it. I was like, he's happy, he has kids, he's married.
Yeah, and that's fine.
That's it.
I think that's fine.
That's
Yeah.
it. I don't need anything else.
But you're a fake fan because you didn't continue watching.
Wow.
See, it doesn't stop, man. Don't you love it? Don't you love the
yeah.
community?
No, I don't. I'm just kidding. Yes, I do.
That's the same. That's the same for. See, that's what I'm saying. I feel like it's worse in anime than like comics, but I guess.
I think
comics
we
to me
just
is
haven't
more-
seen a lot of
I
it.
haven't.
with
I guess it's like I
comics.
haven't kept up as much.
Yeah.
I've just kept with MCU. I'm like watching the movies, but I don't watch the shows as much anymore. Because I think, yeah, I feel because I think it's more like Marvel. At least they have a system, and I kind of trust in that like in the Marvel.
You trust in their formula.
I trust the studio.
Yeah.
DC is just known for figuring out their shit.
One movie at a time.
They're more disjointed, and I'm like, bro, I'll take what I can get at this point.
Yeah,
I've accepted it. Like, I'm waiting for the Batman movie, if anything.
Oh, Rob Pattinson? Oh, yeah.
Oh, the easiest one was always like, oh, you like this Batman? Obviously, this one's better. This is just, you know what I mean?
Oh, man. There's about 6 or 7 different Batmans, I believe.
Too many. Yeah.
Too many actors.
Yeah.
And
Batman's like that role now. Batman's like that 007 role in comics. You know what I mean? Spider-Man's almost at that point.
Spider-Man's almost there. I think if they switch over to one more, it'll start being like the 007.
But I feel like it's probably not as much now because now they have they had to contend with like Marvel Studio. Mm-hmm. But Batman is like they can it goes through like 007.
The turnover rate for Batman is a little high. Just a little. I grew up with George Clooney.
Yeah.
Yeah, we grew up with George Clooney as Batman.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the one I know for sure grew up. And if anything, I've seen.
And Arnold Schwarzenegger as the ice guy.
As Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, Mr. Freeze.
As Mr. Freeze, and all the oh my god.
And Poison Ivy. That was a good movie as a kid.
As a kid watching it, I was like, this is cool. As
an adult, it's a little cheesy.
But bat nipples.
I knew you were gonna say that.
So anytime I talk about George, that is my first thought, and they will never go. Like I can't unsee that. I was like, why? They really just had to point out nipples.
They just had to point out the nipples. Yeah. Harrison.
Bat nipples.
I'm gonna quit right now. Thank you. So we both quit. This is the end of the show.
She doesn't want us to derail anymore. I'm just getting started.
Oh
no. Yeah. That's gatekeeping's fun. Do you think there's any fix to that at this point? I think that's just something that just to round it back together. We talked about
rounding it back.
Rounding it back. Like how it starts is, do you think there's any way that you think it's going to get better, or do you because I feel like over time it could, but I feel like we're just going to be stuck in this this is better. I think it's always
it's always like, oh, this show is better than this, or this manga is better than this.
This is why it's always it's just the internet. I've just accepted this is the internet.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Now that
people are going to have opinions.
Yeah.
It's because people don't like other people's opinions.
Yeah.
It's the reason why there's gatekeeping. I think it's just human nature, though, also.
Yeah. So you think it's just going to be this endless cycle, no matter what?
I think so.
And if anything, I
don't know if it'll get better.
Could increase.
Yeah.
If anything, the levels could increase.
Because the more sources we have to put out, these shows on different platforms, because we have a bajillion streaming services now.
Yeah.
That will put out anime and TV shows and movies and whatnot. I don't think it'll get any better, to be honest.
Yeah, agreed. I think it.
Yeah.
I would like to think there's a potential with how the generations go, but also we're also that generation now. We're older,
millennials.
Because now we're when I say, oh, this is my big three, and people are like, that's old. I was like,
Harry said, we are millennials. We are not cool to Gen Z. It's not it. We are not it for them.
On that note, we're just gonna end the podcast. Unless you got something to add, I'm beat.
I
gotten beat down already. All right. Well, since we don't have any closing thoughts, thanks for tuning in on this one. Thanks for just you can follow. Damn.
If you got this far, welcome to Ranting Harrison Veronica.
And if you want more of this, here's the outro. I'm still beat by that one. I'm not old. Thanks for tuning in. You can follow us on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Twitch.
Oh.
We don't know what to do with that yet. We're still figuring it out.
Yeah.
I say this. Veronica's the brains right now. Cough, cough.
Oh, wow.
Instagram at NgoVo Convo. Oh, do you want to introduce the new thing?
Patreon!
We're on Patreon now.
Yeah,
and
I almost said Patron.
I know what you're thinking about.
Oops.
Dirty
Yeah.
millennial.
So are you. Yeah, but we're on Patreon. Well, we're not going to put anything on there yet. It's just $1 a month to support us and this podcast for now. But we'll have different tiers later down the road, potentially.
Yeah, that's a new thing. We just want to get it out there.
Yeah, but if you have $1 to spare a month, you can.
If anything, it probably could give us more ideas on what we could do.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is why I mentioned Twitch. We're still thinking about that, but we'll see.
We're not thinking about it. We're doing it, but we just had to figure stuff out.
Okay,
It's
no,
fine.
we're
just figuring stuff out. Or if
But
you want to go on Anchor, we have a donation little box thing too. It's 99
I
cents
always
a month,
forget about that.
or $4.99 a month, or $9.99 a month. Whatever
I'm
you
pointing
want.
to Patreon.
Yeah,
I'll point to Patreon.
Yeah.
I have no idea how Anchor works.
it's fine, but it's on both.
Thank you,
places.
Anchor.
Yeah, thanks, Anchor.
But yeah, so there's that. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like button and ring the notification to get updates for when we upload. Got it. And
Got it.
subscribe, of course, if you haven't. It helps.
Yeah, it does.
It helps let us know. Just let us know how we're doing. If you like this, like what kind of episodes you like. We want to change it up just to see how it flows. Essentially, just let us know what you want to see next. Yeah. If you like this kind of format, we could do other topics. You can even just tweet. Yeah, just reach out to us, DM us, to ask us to talk about something random. Like we
Comment.
just did gatekeeping just because I can't talk. We just did gatekeeping because it was just one of the things where we just want to do a topic.
Yeah, we just want to change it up for the week.
Just chill for a bit. Yeah.
Chill. Tweet us,
But-
DM us, love us, comment us. Don't dislike us though. Just like it, like the like button's there.
The like button.
Yeah, comment
Hit
what
the
you
like
dislike.
button to save the video
Yeah,
to watch
save the
later.
video,
That's what
yeah.
I do. Cough, cough.
Yeah.
And other than that, if you got nothing else, bye-bye.
Bye. Wow.